Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a ceasefire deal with Hezbollah in Lebanon following Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's agreement. At least 2,000 indigenous people from West Central Colombia camped out by a government office in Bogota to demand for ancestral lands and attention to their communities. In Brazil, the Supreme Court unveiled a final report by the federal police showing that former President Jair Bolsonaro was fully aware of the coup attempt against President Luis Ignacio da Silva in 2023. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal with Hezbollah in Lebanon following Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's agreement. The Prime Minister's office said the plan was approved by a 10-to-1 vote. Previously, Netanyahu had cited three main reasons for the deal on the Israeli part, namely to focus on the Iranian threat, to refresh army forces and resupply, and to disconnect the fronts and isolate the Palestinian resistance Hamas. Furthermore, he stressed Israel will attack if Hezbollah violates the proposed truce. The agreement allegedly repeats UN Security Council Resolution 1701 and involves the monitoring of the US and France. Israeli media reported that the cessation of hostilities will take effect at 4 a.m. local time on Wednesday. In the meantime, Zionist forces have issued new evacuation warnings for Beirut's southern suburbs. In Syria, the Arab Red Crescent announced the death of one of its volunteers during an Israeli bombardment against a couple of border crossings with Lebanon. The organization issued on a statement that the volunteer, Muhannad Yakish, was hit to death while he was providing rescue services to several wounded. Some of his colleagues were injured as well. The attack took place at the border crossings of Al-Dabushie and Al-Arida in Homs and Tartus provinces, where several ambulances were further destroyed. The Syrian Arab Red Crescent condemned the aggression and demanded respect for international humanitarian law and the protection of its workers to ensure medical and rescue services. Thousands of displaced families return to their homes in different parts of Lebanon and celebrate the victory of the Lebanese resistance after a ceasefire with Israel. The ceasefire is a byproduct of international pressure and the resistance of the Lebanese people. The agreement stipulated a 60-day ceasefire in which progress will be made in the exchange of prisoners, while the Lebanese armed forces will be the only ones allowed to deploy on the southern border. However, Israeli fire is still reported in the south of the country. The Lebanese Ministry of Health registered that 3,823 people have been killed and 15,859 injured since the escalation of the Israeli aggression towards Lebanon since September 2024. The French National Assembly on Tuesday categorically rejected in a non-binding vote the European Union-Mercosur Free Trade Agreement in a context of farmers' protests against the initiative. After a debate with harsh criticism of the pact, 470 deputies denounced the agreement and only 70 supported it. The decision of the National Assembly reinforces the position of President Emmanuel Macron, who ratified his opposition to the free trade initiative under heavy pressure from farmers. However, it seems unlikely that Paris will succeed in slowing down an agreement that the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, estimated to be already in its final stages. In Tanzania, the number of victims during the collapse of a building in the city of Dar es Salaam on November 16th has risen. Authorities have finished rescue operations 10 days after the building collapsed, bringing the death toll to 29. The Tanzanian government spokesman said the owner of the building had been arrested and investigations continue. The four-story building was constructed with minimal financial investment and without adequate analysis of potential risks, which led to its collapse. Local media report that it is one of the most devastating construction-related incidents in the recent history of the African nation. Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Colombia, at least 2,000 native people from West Central are camped outside a government office in Bogota to discuss their demands for ancestral lands and attention to their communities. They arrived in 40 buses from the Department of Risaralda and set up hundreds of tents in front of the National Land Office. Women with children sit there in protest. They denounce the death of at least 110 children under the age of 5 since 2023 from malnutrition-related illnesses. Demonstrators demand more attention to their communities. Venezuela's Attorney General Tarek William Saab detailed on Tuesday the concrete actions carried out by the Public Prosecutor's Office since 2017 in dismantling of criminal gangs in the South American nation.
Desde el año 2017, además del Tren de Aragua, han sido desmantelados o severamente golpeadas al menos 10 bandas.
Since 2017, besides Tren de Aragua, at least 10 gangs have been dismantled, including the gangs of El Coqui, Wilmer Bachiller, El Conas, Carlos Capas, Eduardo Delicia, Eddie Ocan, and Wilexis. In these bands, there are 242 detainees, 187 apprehension orders, 35 charged, and 113 red alerts. Obviously, we cannot finish without saying the fight against conspiracy, against terrorists, against those who want to impose a coup d'etat and unleash in Venezuela a civil war, you have lost.
The Noto Peninsula in central Japan recorded this Tuesday night an earthquake of magnitude 6.6 on the Richter scale without a tsunami warning. According to the Japanese Meteorological Agency, localities that most felt its impact were Wajima, Shika, and Hakui, where recovery efforts continue after last January's earthquake, which left more than 400 dead. This time, local authorities reported only one injured person, a 17-year-old woman, in the city of Tsubata, but the fear now lies in the possibility that structures damaged by the devastating tremor at the beginning of the year may collapse as a result of the new earthquake. Likewise, authorities warn that there is a risk of further earthquakes in the coming week. In Indonesia, rescue and recovery efforts continue after floods and landslides caused by heavy rains have killed 20 people. Rescue teams have been using heavy machinery to try to save victims of the floods and landslides that occurred over the weekend. Authorities say they are continuing to clear the mud and debris caused by the landslides while expecting to find more victims. Indonesia has recently been hit by a series of extreme weather events. Experts say they are a direct result of climate change.
About 10 people were reported missing in this village. We started the evacuation on Sunday, where we found 4 victims. On Monday, we found 5 more victims. Only one person is still missing. Right now, we are focusing on helping the affected community. We have set up an evacuation center in Semangat Gunung village.
And a group of 67 countries participating in the UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in Busan, South Korea, have called in a joint statement for the adoption of a binding global treaty to end plastic pollution by 2040. In the statement, the countries reaffirmed their common ambition to protect human health and the environment from serious effects of plastic pollution and called for the development of a legally binding international instrument. The 67 countries underlined their strong united commitment to ambitiously and effectively conclude the negotiations, taking place from this Monday until Sunday in Busan.
Plastics are highly durable. Depending on environmental conditions, they can decompose in between 100 and 1,000 years or even more. Microplastics have been detected in various human organs, raising concerns about potential health risks, including cancer and reproductive issues. As we can see, this conference is about far more than drafting an international treaty. It is about humanity racing to meet an existential challenge. Your presence reminds us that this is not just a political negotiation, but a collective effort transcending borders, sectors, and generations. I'm optimistic, not because I believe in miracles, but because I believe in the power of human actions, hard work, and collective will.
This year has been the worst in terms of forest fires in Ecuador, with a record number of hectares burned. According to the National Secretary for Risk Management, Jorge Carrillo, the fires reported in the Cajas National Park and in Yabuicu at kilometer 19 of the Cuenca-Moyeturo Road have been extinguished. The fire in Chaucha is also under control. However, the fire in Arquillo is still active and specialized teams are trying to control the flames. So far, the provinces most affected by forest fire are Azuay and Loja, which account for more than half of the hectares burned this year. And vice presidential candidate for Ecuador for the United Unidad Popular movement, Pasha Teran, on Tuesday accused President Daniel Noboa of political persecution. Teran filed a complaint before the Defender of the People's Office after the president called her a terrorist for her participation in the protests of last November 21st against the policies of the current administration. According to the indigenous leader, who is the running mate of candidate Jorge Escala, Noboa's position is an attempt to disarticulate the social resistance and to stop the mobilizations against him. Teran considered that the persecution of the executive is not something isolated, but part of a strategy to criminalize dissident voices. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Brazil, the Supreme Court has unveiled a final report by the federal police showing that former President Jair Bolsonaro was fully aware of the coup attempt against President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in 2023. Documents from the report submitted to the Attorney General's office showed the participation of 37 people in the attempted coup against President Lula da Silva in 2023, including ministers and former President Jair Bolsonaro. These documents refer to Bolsonaro's affirmation of his active participation in these events and his knowledge of what was happening in an attempt to remove President Lula da Silva from power by unconstitutional and violent means. In addition to these accusations, there are other investigations of which former President Jair Bolsonaro was accused at the end of his term. Bolsonaro was accused of abuse of power in several situations motivated by personal interests. manipulating a public health database in order to meet the requirements for entry into the United States. He was also accused of being part of criminal associations and entering false data in public records. In addition to these facts, former President Jair Bolsonaro faces a great rejection within the population, since during the COVID-19 pandemic he described the virus as an ordinary flu and never promoted prevention measures. In Chile, the lawyer of President Gabriel Boric, Jonathan Valenzuela Saldeas, issued a statement last Monday in which he addressed a sexual harassment complaint filed in September of this year against his client. Boric faces a complaint for the alleged dissemination of records of private images, as well as sexual harassment towards a woman 10 years ago, when he was a recent graduate of his law studies. According to the legal representative statement, the Chilean president rejects and categorically denies the accusations. Valenzuela stated that, on the other hand, President Boric was the victim of systematic harassment via email by an adult woman who met him in the context of his professional practice in Punta Arenas.
Queremos reiterar que estamos enfrentando una denuncia sin sustento.
We want to reiterate that we are facing an unsubstantiated accusation about events that never occurred. The President has not yet been notified, summoned, or required by the prosecutor's office regarding this complaint.
Y esos correos, uno de ellos al menos,
those emails, at least one of them, include explicit images of the complainant, without, by the way, request or consent of the recipient.
Former Argentine President Alberto Fernandez will testify before the court in a case investigating irregularities in the procurement of insurance for public agencies during his term in office. Alberto Fernandez will leave the confinement to which he has been subjected in Puerto Madero for the last 4 months in order to defend himself against the insurance scandal. In 2 weeks, he must return for the complaint filed by Fabiola Yañez. The former president is accused of leading a maneuver to direct the contracts of the main insurance companies with the state during his term of office. The specific charges and the evidence against him will only be known at the beginning of the investigation. Also in Argentina, the court terminated one of the cases with which former Senator Gerardo Morales designed the persecution against former provincial deputy of Jujuy and leader of Tupac Amaru, Milagro Sala. The accusation was initiated because Morales was hit with eggs during a protest against him in 2009, in which Milagro Sala had not even participated. All members of the highest court rejected the appeal filed against the decision to dismiss Milagro Sala in the case. In this way, the court members frustrated Morales' attempt to sustain a case for an event that took place a decade and a half ago. And the Bolivian company Yacimientos de Litio Boliviano and the Chinese company Hong Kong CBC Investment Limited signed an agreement on Monday for the production of lithium carbonate in the southwest of the country. 2 lithium carbonate plants will be built, for which an initial Chinese investment of more than $1.03 billion has been agreed. The Bolivian company's executive president, Omar Alarcón, pointed out that China is a world leader in renewable energies and a producer of lithium batteries. Meanwhile, President Luis Arce celebrated that the nation is negotiating with the largest and most important lithium production companies in the world. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.